Hello and welcome back to the Finns Nation UK podcast. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, and with me, my co-host, Mark Bradley. Mark, how are you?
I'm good, Andy. I'm good. How are you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. How are you doing on this newsworthy day, as it were?
yeah, that is. We had planned to talk about him potentially holding off or not practicing it today. Turns out, literally within the last hour, he signed a new deal, a 4-year, $212.4 million extension. This is reported by ESPN, and it reports that includes $167 million guaranteed, which is the largest in Dolphins history. Straight away, first of all, how are you? And secondly, what massive news?
I'm good. Yeah, it's been a good week, kind of keeping up with the training camps. As you know, we've said before, obviously, kind of been looking forward to what feels like the proper start of the season and getting everything going, and sort of keeping an eye on the insiders all week and watching that for snippets from the camp and listening to the guys that are over in the States watching and stuff like that. So it's been a bit up and down with obviously Tua practicing a little bit and then not practicing at all, and then it's like, is it going to drag on and everything else like that? And then today, you know, he comes in this morning. Mike McDaniel does a press conference and says kind of, oh yeah, he's going to be doing everything today, and you kind of think, oh okay, well why is that changed? And then lo and behold, the news comes out, broken by Tua himself. I don't know if you've seen the video of him breaking
not yet. No, I've been so busy tonight. I've not had time to look at that yet.
Yeah, there's a video of him kind of breaking the news himself in a rather jazzy flamingo decorated shirt, which and he's had all his hair cornrowed back as well after his big afro that he's been rocking all week. So I think it's a good day. I'm very pleased that we've finally got it done. Obviously big money, which obviously we expected, but not horrific money, I don't think. I think it still puts him. I think I got sort of third. I think overall, it's the largest 4-year extension in NFL history as a 4-year deal rather than a 5. So he's got a notable achievement in his contract in terms of he's got that largest deal. But I think in terms of the guaranteed money he's due to get, I think it puts him just behind Jared Goff, whereas I think the overall money is just ahead of Jared Goff. So, you know, obviously that was signed. But of course, what he has done, which is probably quite a clever move from him and his team, is in having the 4-year extension rather than the 5-year, it should put him ahead of or the next round of big contract renewals that he's followed this time around, so he can probably look to set the market if he has a successful 4 or 5 years, which, you know, if he does with us, then we can only benefit that, I guess.
Yeah, and I think I remember at the time when Mahomes signed this deal, 10-year deal, everyone was saying, "Oh my God, this is an extortionate deal." But since then, he's not even. I don't think he's. I can't think whether it was guaranteed money or whether it was money per year. But he's not even in the top 10 or 15 quarterbacks. I don't know whether he'll get restructured one day and that will change. But I think if you can get ahead of the curve, I think we've done that with Waddle as well, which before Lamb, before Jamar Chase, I think that was smart as well. So I think people are going to assume that I'm sort of not in favour of this deal, but I'm glad we got it done, to be honest, because the worst thing you want is a quarterback holding off and not practicing as much, and it just creates unnecessary drama, which we don't really need in a locker room. And I think, from what we were saying as well, the fact that it's going to be before the trend, I think that's big as well. And I think, we should remember that this is how it is these days. I mean, most teams are now paying early odds. The Cowboys did with Dak Prescott. The Lions have paid a lot of money for Jared Goff. Jalen Hurts, I believe, or Lamar Jackson. All these quarterbacks are getting these new deals. And Jordan Love has been talked about as well. Even more weirdly because he's only really had 1 year as a starter. But for me, it's a lot of money. But that is the market. That is what every quarterback is getting these days. Whether they're top 10, top 5, or top 15, that is the money they're getting, and then we have to just sort of go along with it. And obviously, we will have to probably pay the credit card in a few years. But I think has to be done. It has to be done now, because I think the longer it goes on, the more this distraction it brings in.
I agree.
Media, when they ask questions, will be constantly about Tua's contract. I think just to get out of the way, just to get it signed, is for me the most important thing.
Yeah, I think you're right, Andy. I think the rumblings coming out of the training camp. The first day everybody's there, they interviewed the usual suspects, people like Tyreek and Waddle and Mostert and people like that. And obviously they were all saying, let's get Tua paid, let's get Tua paid. And I think to a man, kind of everybody's supported him and kind of said, we respect what he's doing, and if he needs to hold out, he's got to do what he needs to do. I think there was, he had the support of the squad. However, listening to some of the guys, it was noticeable apparently on what day today? We're Friday today, aren't we? So in the training yesterday, that the offense was, I think I read a couple of reports that kind of used the word, it looked a bit stale, it looked a bit kind of heavy, and it looked a bit sort of off the pace. And and obviously when you're doing the reps with Mike White and Skylar, then it probably is going to be a bit like that. But it all seemed a bit morose in terms of the the way that they were sort of performing. And I think that leads into the fact that everybody there just wanted to see it done and get Tua back to his normal happy-go-lucky, which he is. He always comes across as a very motivated, very positive guy. And I mean, I do think that the hold in as it really was, because he was there, it felt like that was a reluctant holding by Tua. I think he was probably being told by his agency and everything else like that to get the deal done. And and he just kind of looked moping around with his hands in his pockets, but he was still, sort of taking notes and going through the playbooks and the play call sheets and everything else like that. So it was almost like it felt a little bit like he was like, oh, but I want to play, but I really shouldn't. And he looked a little bit like an ejected kid, sort of being told that he couldn't go out and play because he's got to kind of negotiate this thing, and we don't want anything to happen with it. So it felt a bit hard on him. And obviously on the players as well. But the flip side of that, everything coming out of training today is that the offense were on fire. Everybody was back. Everybody was apparently 70-yard touchdowns to Tyreek, and 18 with a massive touchdown. River Craycraft performing and everything else like that, and even catching things and stuff like that. And that it was, the whole atmosphere had totally changed around the place. And it just goes to what you said there about it's not even so much the financial impact of it, it's the morale impact that has on everybody. And I must admit, I'm quite relieved. Pretty much all the people that you mentioned there, Lamar, Dak, people like that, all had, even Jordan Love at the minute, they're all having noticeable holdouts, or it dragged on right to the start of the season. And, I think, it went to their, they played on the franchise tag in the end and those sorts of things. And I just don't think it's healthy for our situation anyway. I think Tua's going to have enough on his plate to try and win these playoff games and win these games against the better teams that we know is the final thing that he needs to add to his arsenal. And the last thing he really wants is to have all of this in the back of his mind, I think, because I think that's just going to be counterproductive.
Absolutely. And the caveat to all of this is the fact that Chris Jones held out the whole of last offseason. Obviously, they went on to win a Super Bowl, but I think the Chiefs are that is just because it's just Mahomes. I think, it's at a different stage of their team than us. And I think that, I don't think we could afford to have that happen to us, but I think, the Chiefs would have been fine whether Chris Jones was there or not. They're just that good of a team. But I think for us, I think you don't want to. There's already been so much talk about Tua in the past, whether it's he can't throw deep or his health concerns, and what happened against the Bengals. And I think it's just nice to get out of the way, because it's for his sake as well. He's now settled in terms of now he's set for life. I mean, they always say the second contract is what you aim for, because the first contract is notoriously not always a big money one. And the national Caleb Williams, it's not normally one where you get paid loads of money, and it's such a brutal sport, such a dangerous sport. having that second contract where you earn, especially if you're top end of your game, if you earn hundreds of millions of dollars in a X amount of year deal, I think it's, for me, that's always where the players, where they want to achieve. Obviously, some players go on and don't really do much after that. Sometimes they retire after getting a second contract because they've done all they can. And obviously, I don't suggest for a minute Tua is going to do that at all. I don't think he would. But I think it just puts his mind at ease, and now he can just, especially in the first week of training camp as well, to get that out of the way. Now you can just focus on the football. Basically, there's no one else I could think of that wants a new deal. Jalen Waddle got paid. Tyreek Hill might be the only one, but apart from that, everyone else is. I think
maybe Holland is Javon Holland got his coming up at
maybe
season, at the end of the season. Maybe I think.
But do you think you'll get paid that much? Because safety's not exactly like a glamorous position. It's not like a quarterback or wide receiver or cornerback or anything like that. It's.
I think that's going to be an interesting thing, because there was reading, obviously everything about Tua that's been in the press, but the general, there's I think there's a feeling that, to a point, Miami don't necessarily always look after their own in terms of their players. Sort of the Wilkins and Van Ginkel and all of that sort of stuff kind of this year and in previous years as well with Gesicki and other players, that they kind of don't really, they're more than happy to go and find people in free agency or find people in the draft and not really kind of look after their own. So hopefully this is perhaps the start of a slight shift. But yeah, you're right in terms of Holland with the safety. I think, he's an excellent young player. He's an up and coming young player. He's, he had a great season last year, despite being in a scheme and working for a defensive coordinator in Fangio that he clearly didn't get on with. So, I would hope that they would look to do that. But of course, like I say, there has been this reluctance from Miami in the past to kind of pay the going rate, if you like, for their players in the positions that they've got, because they see perhaps a little bit more value in an older player through free agency or something else like that. So we'll have to see with that. But I think he did say sort of that he's he wants to stay. And obviously Tyreek, I don't know if you noticed, I don't know if you picked up on the interview with Tyreek earlier this week as well, when he was talking about the Tua situation. He mentioned about wanting a new contract. And he said, which I thought was really interesting, he said that he's told his agent that he'd like to stay in Miami. He doesn't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And he said, the last time I told my agent that I wanted a new contract, he ended up getting me traded.
Yeah,
which
I know.
I thought was quite a statement to say, actually, I only asked for a new contract, and that ended up being that I ended up in Miami, albeit obviously he loves it here, but it was kind of like, I thought it was a bit of a veiled threat to his kind of his agencies to say, look, don't get me traded again. I don't want to rock the boat that much, which kind of makes you think as well, how much of these negotiations are the agents kind of pushing for the higher values and them saying to the players, you don't want to be accepting that, you don't want to be accepting that, rather than the players going, actually, I'd be happy with $40 million a year. Oh no, you want to be getting $47 million a year or $49 million a year, and then going 10%, 15%, and it was just, I just thought it was really interesting that Tyreek kind of said that, the last time he raised that with his agency, it got him traded, rather than saying that was what he wanted. It kind of felt like, look what happened when I asked last time,
Yeah, I think we see it in, a lot of sports where the agents are part of the problem. These players aren't, you see, when you see players in the NFL, whether they're holding out for a new deal, or whether it's football, a player wants a transfer request or he wants more wages, half the time, if not more than that, it's the agent. And, it's because they get a cut, and albeit NFL doesn't get, I don't believe gets as much as Premier League agents do, or football agents in general, but I think it's still, obviously there are, I'm sure, plenty of agents that are not money orientated. I think there must be some that are purely caring about the player, especially the ones that, maybe top of their game, they're more respectful. I don't know, but I do feel like, half the battle is the agent, and I think that they're obviously, fair play to them, they want their money and all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't help that agents, getting involved in all of this and causing probably half the problems in terms of all these holdouts, all these trade requests, anything like that. I'm so sure it's the agents doing most of that work.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bizarre situation, really. I always find with the NFL, like obviously, being in the UK based, and obviously, we kind of have, sort of the contracts in soccer and stuff like that over here that we kind of see, and a lot of that sort of stuff. But it feels really weird that, like, that a player decides he wants a better contract, or and he's just going to not turn up to training, or he's just not going to turn up to, and I know we have kind of a similar thing. Oh, you're sent to play in the reserves, or you have to train with the reserves or whatever. But that tends to be a club to a player rather than a player just going, I'm not going to come to work today. And it feels like a really weird thing that the player just decides, oh, yeah, okay, I had a new contract this year, but a couple of other people have got more, so I'm just not going to come in until you basically give me a bit more money, or send me somewhere else. And you just think, wow, I mean, I wish I could do that with my job. I'd just like to say, well, I'm not going to. I don't feel like you're paying me enough today, so I'm not going to turn up today. And then but and I know they get fined, but I think even if they get fined, it's in the CBA that they can only be fined a certain amount or a certain value, and you just think it's just a bit of a bizarre situation. I always find where they just go, no, yeah, I'm just going to hold out. I'm not going to do that, or I'm gonna turn up to training. In the case of like Brandon Ayuk, I'm gonna turn up to training, but my neck's a bit sore and my back's a bit sore, and I'm just I don't really feel up to it today, coach. And it just feels like a really kind of a bit of a bizarre thing to us, because obviously we just don't really have that over here. Okay, you want a new contract, you seek a transfer, or you kind of knuckle down until your contract runs out, and then you get your deal. But it's a bit different over there.
Yeah, it's just mad as well that I think Rodgers, one of the days he didn't turn up to training or the OTAs, he got a $50,000 fine. I mean, that is probably, in terms of, I think that was pretty much double the average UK and US salary. I don't know what the US one is, but the UK one, I believe, is 25 grand a year, 20 grand a year is the average salary in the UK. Yeah. And he's getting, in just one day, double someone's annual salary. I find that, and that is peanuts to these players as well. It's crazy. And yeah, it's just, we're living in different worlds. We're living in different worlds completely. We really are.
I'll say, did you see Aaron Rodgers in his trip to Egypt earlier in the season with his?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
just decided to go away, and he was just kind of like, well, we had mandatory camp this time last year. I just thought it'd be the same. I couldn't change it, so I went anyway. All right, okay, all right. You're just the leader of the team, you're just a quarterback. But so I went anyway, and then just which is Aaron Rodgers through and through. Turned up to training the first day wearing a T-shirt that he got while he was in Egypt. With like
that is so Rodgers,
isn't it? Isn't it just like, I mean, there's all this stuff in the news about about everybody saying, oh, should really have attended, and he's like, well, not only am I not going to, I'm going to rub it in your face as well. I can be like, well, look at my lovely, he should have come to Egypt T-shirt.
God, it's the life, isn't it? It is the life. You can pay all this money, you can just not turn up to your job, and they almost love you more. It's crazy. Yeah. But we'll move on to other news. This news we were originally planning on talking about at the start of the show before this Tua news broke out. Shaq Barrett retiring from the NFL. Just seems like days after he joined the Dolphins. He had decided to retire to be close to his family, which, after what happened to him a year ago, you can sort of understand. So he is now gone, and in his place returned old Dolphins player, which I actually really liked when he played for Dolphins, in Emmanuel Ogbah. I wanted to re-sign him at the time when he did leave, so I'm glad he's back. But what was your take on? I remember when the news broke, you WhatsApped me saying, "Have you seen this news?" And it was just like a shock to everyone. What was your take on it overall?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't argue with anybody wanting to spend time with their family or and go and do that. So you can't fault his reasoning. I find it a little bit strange that he didn't know that in March or whenever it was that we signed him through free agency. Disappointed, he was one of the guys that I think we spoke about when we had our podcast about, the leaders coming into the season and players that have obviously, been around and add that captaincy sort of leadership to the team. So that felt kind of disappointing that we weren't going to kind of have him because of that. He's a good player, and I just kind of feel, again a little bit like we were saying, you've agreed a contract, you've decided that's what you're going to do, but then the day before you just kind of go, yeah, I don't really feel like I'm going to do that. It's a bit much, and I don't want to do that or whatever, and away you go. But on the flip side, I'm the same as you. I quite like Emmanuel Ogbor. I think he's a good player. Again, interestingly enough, if we'd have re-signed him, I think at the end of last season, it would have been a 14 million contract that he was after. I think we've got him for just less than 5 now, which is obviously kind of, the difference. The difference a summer without a club coming in for you makes. So I'm kind of glad he's back. I think he got the orange shirt in training. In the I think it was the third after he came in on the Monday and signed. I think he practiced on the Tuesday, and I think on Wednesday he had the orange shirt for the hardest trainer or the hardest worker in the previous day, which obviously shows that he's committed to the cause and everything else like that. So I mean I wasn't overly disappointed when he left because I think the cap hit at 14 million was way too high. But I think on the deal that we've got him, he's absolutely worth it, and hopefully gets a chance to prove himself. I think is he 29? I think he is. I don't think he's too old either, so he's perhaps got a couple of seasons left in him. And again, he does seem to be from the bits that I've read, he does seem to be a positive influence around the dressing room as well. And I think quite a few other players seem to be pretty glad that he was coming back, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, I think from when he was there, I thought he was pretty reductive at times. So for me, gives that experience back in the locker room. Bob Barrett's probably got more of experience, and Ogberry's got obviously multiple Super Bowl rings, and he's had. I think he may have led the league in sacks or tackles one year. I may be wrong on that. He has been a great player, and it was a shame we never got to see him in the Dolphins jersey, but it is what it is, unfortunately. And it was only a short deal anyway, so he may have only been here a year, but it would be nice to have him in that locker room just for a year because we were starting to build all these characters and getting everyone in. We mentioned before Calais Campbell and Odell Beckham and everyone else. And it's a shame that he wouldn't be part of that. And speaking of Odell Beckham, news came out that he 2 days ago was placed on the active/physically unable to perform list by the Dolphins. I don't know whether this was down to the fact that he's maybe just getting used to a new system, or maybe because of his age or just trying to limit his production, or is there maybe more that worries you about this Odell Beckham?
I think when you look at the last few seasons that Beckham's had, there is a worry over his fitness. I'm led to understand that from the stuff that I've read that it's more of a precautionary thing to kind of look after him going into the season and not kind of overloading him right at the start. He obviously had a few injuries at the back end of last season that I think he's still perhaps clearing up. So I don't feel overly concerned if the information that's coming out seems to be accurate. However, I think if he was placed on the, I think if it probably carried on for a couple of weeks up to sort of towards the start of pre-season, I think you'd probably start to feel a little bit anxious that maybe that trio of really dangerous wide receivers that we were expecting might not quite come to fruition as much as we'd thought. But again, I suppose on the other side, we've got some good young wide receivers that will probably benefit just from having him around for his experience and his know-how and his knowledge, and you'd hope he was passing that on to them. But yeah, a little concern maybe, but still not overly too worried at this point, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way we look at it, really. I think, as you say exactly, I think it will be starting to be panic time should it get to, you say, the start of pre-season or maybe middle of August and it's still, that sort of still happening. That's when, I think it'll be time to put the panic buttons on, because who else do you get at this point? I've not looked at free agent wide receivers, but if it was to be the case where he wasn't going to play or it was that bad that he got released or cut, then it would obviously bring into question who the hell fills the spot. But I think right now maybe we calm the panic brakes for now. But I think anything more than that would be a worry.
Cheeky bidding for Brandon Ayuk. That's what we need to do.
Oh, I mean, if they're up for it, yeah, definitely. I mean, that would be.
I mean, we've got no cap to afford him, but it would be. That's let's see if we can do something down there.
Yeah, we'll go down at NFL Loan Shark and see what happens.
that'd be great. I mean, could you imagine if somehow they pulled that off and you said, "Oh, okay, I've now got Ayuk, Hill, and Waddle as their three wide receivers." I think that really would put the wind up the Bills.
Oh yeah, it'd be by far the best receiver room in the league. I think to have those three. I think the 1-2 is probably the best right now in Hill and Waddle.
Yeah.
Add in Beckham or if it was Ayuk, then my goodness, what a trio.
Yeah.
Now also David Long, linebackers, also on the PUP list, but although you mentioned receivers, and of course one of the news that came out the other day was one of our draft picks in the 7th round this year, Taj Washington, is put on IR, likely ending his rookie year. He took part in the team's off-season program earlier in the year, I should say. Sorry, but he was obviously recently placed on that PUP list, and for him, that's a shame, because I think myself and you, I think you particularly were waxing lyrical about him when you reviewed the draft, and obviously it's not to be, but it's thankfully he's not played yet. So we don't know what we're missing yet, but obviously it's not as if it's like Tyreek Hill getting injured. You think, that's playoff season done, but at least it gives him the time again just to watch and learn for a year. Behind obviously 2 great receivers, 3 if Beckham does play. So maybe it is the best thing for him right now.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think there's, it is a shame because he got good production coming out of college, and obviously him and Malik Washington, who obviously we signed as well, in sort of consecutive rounds. And I was, sort of quite impressed reading up on him. But like you say, it's not the end of the world. He's a young receiver. We can keep him around the place and everything else like that. And hopefully he'll pick up gives him a year to, if you like, get sort of fully knowledgeable with the playbook and stuff like that. And hopefully he can come back in. I mean, I suppose if we were going to lose anybody from anywhere, the wide receiver core is probably one of the best places. We've got a lot of. We've got 3 excellent ones in the ones we've already mentioned. We've got depth in terms of Malik Washington, who has been performing quite well in training, from what I gather. River Craycraft again. I mean, I've always been quite a fan of River Craycraft. I mean, I don't ever think he's never going to be like probably a proper number 2 or anything else like that. But he always seems to be effective when he's called upon and seems pretty reliable. He's not the sort that, as far as I can remember, doesn't really seem to drop a lot or anything else like that. Seems to get himself open when he needs to, and all of those sorts of things. So I think it's not there. And of course the forgotten man from the last couple of seasons is Eric Ezekanma, who again, to all intents and purposes, looked like he'd got all of the attributes there to be a success, and again, injuries and stuff like that. But I haven't really heard anything about him this sort of off season so far, which is a little bit. I was a little bit surprised that I kind of was expecting that he might have been a little bit more prominent in the camp so far, but doesn't seem to be too much there. But again, he is a excuse me, he is another option there, and I think the beauty with the running back core that we've got with Mustard, HN, and Jalen Wright as well from obviously in terms of the rookie elements, they're all decent enough pass catchers as well. So you perhaps think, well, you've always got the ability to kind of do some trick plays and do a little bit of stuff with them, I guess.
Yeah, I think Izuma Kana, he was getting obviously a lot of plaudits in the last off season, and I was really excited to see him play in 2023. Obviously, it didn't happen, but I'm hoping this year he can sort of have a go again, and obviously I have a chance now with you would think with Beckham not there, having some reps and making an impression on McDaniel, but weird one. I don't know whether he's ever going to get that chance now. I'm not sure. What's going to happen with him, and I think that is a always a worry for a player because if you don't do well in your first 3 years, you don't get your second deal. They don't exercise your fifth year option, and then after that, it's like if you haven't played any NFL snaps, no other team's going to ever heard of you.
No.
So you got a very small chance of being taken by a team. Obviously, you can get a practice squad place, and you could do something then. But the NFL's a league where it's what have you done for me lately? And if you've not played for a year or two, or not being picked up in a year or two, your chances are pretty much 1% of ever playing for a team again and playing actual games. So for me, it's always a worry for him. If he doesn't play again this year, I don't know what really happens then. I don't know what he's gonna do moving forward with that. And I do think maybe it's 3 years and out. But that is sadly the way the NFL works. Other than that, obviously we did have planned to talk about Tua's sitting out practice in day 2. You have got your eyes on the ball when it comes to training camp, and I have been very busy this week. So I want to get from you really. Anything else really take your eye in training camp this week?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of a little bit jealous of all of the guys over in the States that get to go and watch it and kind of report on it and stuff like that. But then we kind of have to just deal with kind of getting the information secondhand. But yeah, I mean, I think lots of kind of, obviously as there always is, new people to kind of look at. One of my favourite players from the draft, Patrick Paul, is making some waves, it seems, in terms of his obviously his size and his ability. Especially today, I'm reading a couple of the things in terms of taking snaps and not being or being very composed, very strong, especially against sort of Kamara and Robinson, Chop Robinson. Who have done well, but also Patrick Paul's been showing against them. Chop Robinson's getting some interesting talk on him. Downsides in terms of his run blocking and stuff like that, but massive upside in the way that he moves. A lot of people saying, there's only really Jalen Phillips who moves anything like with the speed that Robinson does. He's frequently off the edge. He's frequently sort of getting past his man, except Patrick Paul, it would be. But generally doing pretty well. But just his run blocking seems to be a little bit of a concern. But on the flip side, Kamara kind of looks a little bit the other way. He looks like to be the strength and the power rusher sort of element, whereas Chop would appear to be the speedster. So it might. I know we're all a bit concerned about the edges kind of going into the season with whether, Phillips and Chubb are going to be fit and stuff like that. But it sounds like we've at least got a couple of players that can complement whatever Anthony Weaver wants to do with the scheme in terms of if he wants a power set or if he wants a speed set, at least to kind of to cover and have the ability to at least put some plays together. It would appear, it seems like they're doing pretty good with that. Sounds like the defense. It's good news coming out of the defense. I think kind of hearing very aggressive, a very different looking defense to what we've seen before. Even visually, the players that we've brought in that we've obviously spoke about before in terms of sort of Calais Campbell and Benito Jones, and just the general size of the defense looks a lot more intimidating this year. It looks a lot more powerful. They've kind of been going to work with that in the way that they've been playing under Weaver. It seems to be very, very aggressive, very sort of getting after the quarterback. Sort of just today, lots of work, sacks for Campbell, Chop Robinson, Kamara, Tyre Tart has been kind of pushing his way through as well. So lots of kind of positives there, and of course the forgotten man, or not the forgotten man really, because he mentioned it a lot, but the forgotten man in terms of what we thought. Cam Smith has been performing pretty well from what I gather. Couple of pass breakups against Jalen Waddle today, and looking at sort of establishing himself after obviously is all kind of wondering kind of what the hell happened really last year with Vic Fangio and obviously him not fancying him at all. But sounds like he's been doing well. And a name that probably was a bit of a not necessarily new one, but one that we don't hear a lot about. Quinton Bell has been doing very well apparently in the edge. Which
a name I wasn't expecting to hear today.
yeah. I mean, on the earlier parts of the week, a couple of people were really kind of singling him out as being, doing sort of some really good work. Which, again, obviously, given that he can play edge, is good news. And I think it'll be really interesting to see kind of where we get to come the first couple of preseason games, or there's only a couple of preseason games, but the first preseason game, just who's going to get some of these early reps. And it sounds like we might have some sort of depth competition, which perhaps we doesn't really feel like we've had too much of recently. We've had our starters, and then the people that have come in have always kind of been a level below. But it's from what I can tell, it sounds like things are going really well. There's a lot of positivity, and again, I get that players should always sound sort of happy, and stuff like that. But a lot of the talk coming out, I've watched pretty much most of the media interviews with the players and stuff like that. Jalen Ramsey, who's an interesting character when you watch his interviews. I think it's funny when you look at the personalities of players. I always kind of got the impression from watching him on the field that he's a bit of a exuberant sort of personality, a bit like Tyreek when Tyreek talks and he's all action and he's all sort of bubbly and that. Yeah, he's not like that at all when he's doing media. He's kind of he's a bit sort of stoic in what he says, and he's just kind of like, well, I can't really tell you about that at the minute, and I can't really tell you about that at the minute, and we'll see how it goes. And yeah, well, it's only the second day, or it's, he was quite downplaying everything, and it wasn't what I expected him to be like at all in his press conference. But I guess different players deal with media differently, don't they? But overall, yeah, I mean, the mood seems good. I think the one thing that comes through and obviously did with Hard Knocks last year and everything else, I think the thing that comes through is that all of the players feel to me like they're fully bought in. They're all behind McDaniel. They all love McDaniel. There's a great atmosphere, or it seems that there's a great atmosphere. Obviously, the Tua stuff aside, which obviously had its effect, but now that's out the way, and it just seems like there's a good sort of camaraderie, and there's a lot of sort of a lot of passion. And of course the things that Mike McDaniel's doing in terms of I don't know if you saw this, where he's pretty much plastered, is it 24 years since we won the playoff game? Is it 24, 21? Can't remember.
I think it was 2000, I think. Yeah, it was 2000, I think.
24. So 24, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was, yeah. And he's got 24s everywhere. 24 this, 24 that, 24 the other. It's just a reminder for everybody.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
24 years. Yeah. And that's it. And one of the, sorry, just rambling on here, but the one of the things that I really, really liked in the player interviews was Tyreek came out and was saying how excited he is about the team, how much he loves it and everything like that. But one of the things that I thought was really, really good was he said that he was asked about the 2,000 yards again. And he basically said that he's realized, or he feels, having looked back on it now, that it was all that focus on the 2K was kind of selfish on his part. It was too much for him to be thinking about that. It should have been the team first. And he kind of went away and he kind of thought about that. And he says, my goal this year isn't an individual goal. It's the team winning the playoff game. It's the team then progressing, if we do that, to the Super Bowl. The 2,000 yards will take care of itself. If we do those things, I'll get there. And if I do, great. I still want it. I still want to do it. But that I'm not going to be kind of coming out and talking about that every week, that's what I want to get to. And it was kind of really kind of a different side of Tyreek, which I thought was really good. And if he's going in there and he's sort of bullying up that team spirit and that team ethic as well, then I don't think we can go far wrong with at least the attitude going into the games this year.
I absolutely love that. And I apologize for the listeners. I was just trying to find my Mac charger because it was I was getting a low battery notification. So if you heard a bit of rustling just then, that is why. But I love that because I did feel at the time that maybe it was slightly hindering, maybe not the season, but I think it was definitely having maybe a toll on the kind of the way the game plan has been targeted and the amount of times we were passing Tyreek Hill and a couple of drops here and there in the games. But I think that, I think you can't really rely on one guy. I think most times a team that wins Super Bowls have got a balanced offense. There's multiple guys getting involved. And I think that with the Dolphins, I think if we've not just purely focusing on getting to Hill, it'll open up the likes of Tyreek Hill, it'll open up the likes of whoever the third choice receiver is, whether it's OBJ, whether it's Ezra McCarner or whoever else is that fourth. Obviously, Johnny Smith as well, the tight end. I think, I love that. I love the fact that he is thinking of the team. Especially with a guy who's left the team in the Chiefs and they won back-to-back Super Bowl since. Part of him must think what if, but then it's so good to hear that even after that he's still all in on the team, fully aware that he might be playing his last year or two of the team, and he's obviously will want to end his career on a high. And I think that's given me real good hope. Some might say maybe false hope, but I'm getting really excited now about the season after hearing that. With Daniel doing with the 24, Hill talking about the team, it's just getting me really, really excited, and I just can't wait now for it to start and get me to that mid-September or early September, I should say. Should be, I believe, the 8th or 9th. The day's completely passed by when the first game is. But I can't wait, and I think that's really got me excited. I think for anyone listening at home or watching on YouTube, I think you should also get excited. This is the time to get excited, which I'm sure all fans are probably doing right now of all 32 teams. But I think that for me is something I've loved to hear, and I just can't wait. And that is, I think, personally, the fitting way to end this podcast for today. So once again, thank you, Mark, for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. All fun as always.
Yeah, always fun, mate. And we will be having a week off. Well, semi-week. I'll be away, as I mentioned before, off camera. I will be at the Olympics as of tomorrow evening. I'll be in France, so won't be available until I think I get back late Saturday. So I'll be around either on Sunday, Monday with Mark to go through any more Dolphins news that comes up. But in the meantime, this has been the Fins Nation UK podcast. I've been your host, Andy. This has been my co-host, Mark. And we'll see you guys next time. Go Fins.